everyone, welcome back to Studioloo. It's Cindy. So I'm here today to reveal another very scrappy boiled book. So I'm really excited because since I revealed my last boiled book and I talked about compost that you can find in graveyards, I've seen a couple of other channels practicing this method, and that's kind of awesome because it's really nice to find, you know, free supplies that you can also like very much practice sort of like more reuse with, so you're biodegrading things even more for the planet, which is great. So today is a very scrappy kind of eco print or boiled book exercise. So these plants, I actually forgot about them. I had collected them in I have like a series of plastic and mesh collection bags, and I forgot all about them, and they were sitting around, and some of them didn't survive, but everything I used here, most importantly, was dry prior to me just basically, you know, putting it in between the papers and folding it. I did get the plants wet with water. I haven't used any mordant. I haven't used any tannins. I haven't used any acids. I've used sketchbook paper primarily and a couple of pieces of watercolor paper. The sketchbook paper specifically has a lot of sizing in it, so it will be color fast. So yeah, I am excited to see what we have here. So let's open the little bundle first. This is kind of like, you know, Davy Jones' locker. It's all been wrapped up in this chain. So let's go with the one that has no chain. I should mention that in the water, however, I did add rusty bits and bobs, not between the pages very much. There's a few things, but mainly just in the pot and on top of the paper as a weight. So there are some flowers and eucalyptus in here that have been dyed like by a florist, so they most definitely impact the overall natural effect that would have occurred without any kind of artificial colorant, right? So, but I love the artificial colorant too. So these were those rainbow dyed roses. There were pink, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple that were a part of this. So maybe I'll move this out of the way here. Hold on. Let me just get these flowers. And where did I put my bucket? Oh, it's right here behind me. Okay, let me just grab a piece of paper. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of here so that we can have kind of one focus area. So this sat on there, on this one. And I'll move the strings out of here too. Just lay this down so that you can see we got a nice like a mirror image, because I folded the papers. And one side is black, mostly black, and some yellow, and then we have some pink on the other side from those roses. Open. Here we go. Okay, so this one here has red dyed eucalyptus, and these are some leaves from roses, which the rose leaves are a really, really good mask. They will stick and lay down against, like a resist against the paper. I don't even have a lot of variation of what was used in this batch, because like I've mentioned, these were just kind of forgotten bits and bobs that I had sitting, and they were all dry. So I just quickly threw water on them and rehydrated them a bit, but they were very crunchy when I put them in between the papers. So I like how we really got the outline of the eucalyptus. Okay. There's one of those blue petals from the roses, more eucalyptus. As always, because eucalyptus has such a high amount of tannin, it's always going to print beautifully, really, no matter what you do. Now the other rust that I used in this were rusty can lids, because they're a nice flat surface and they'll give you nice circles. They're really good for a resist as well if you're using a dye. I use them often when I do indigo dye because they sort of create a moon on your indigo fabric. So you can see the stems here. And overall we got a bit of a purpley gray tone to this paper, which is exactly what I was going for. I actually have a project in mind for most of this paper. I've been working in darker shades lately. I'll do some eco printing maybe with flowers and leaves later on to show you not just boiled books but different eco printing techniques. I have a ton of eco printing planned on fabric in the September range of this year because I will be traveling to do a lot of eco printing. Also some mushroom and lichen dyeing. These are a different kind of eucalyptus and they give a nice outline and spottiness, and we got some nice red hue in there too. It's transferred from the other pages. So far this is all sketchbook paper, just from an old sketchbook that I was going through. I'm trying to use up my old sketchbooks lately that, you know how, I don't know if you do this, but throughout my life I've started probably 100 sketchbooks and I never finished them to completion. So there's many books that have some amount of my art in them and then a lot of empty pages. Okay, so that is stack 1. Now we'll go to this stack that I've wrapped in this chain. This chain was from just a necklace that, like, I think I did like an not an unboxing, but like a thrift haul where I opened a bunch of scrap jewelry from the thrift store. So this is one thing that was in the bag, and I decided to see if it would rust, and it did. Well, it sort of did. It's going to rust more, but I thought I would just keep on using it and putting it in with things that are rusty so it can keep getting rustier. So let me grab this top paper. Okay, here we go. So we definitely got rust effect from it. That's from a metal cog that isn't pictured here, but I have shown them in my past videos, the cogs that I use. So we got a clump of, this is a carnation. And they can be a little challenging to dye with because you can't really easily pull the petals apart because they're very tiny petals, so you don't get a lot of definition, but they do add color. So all these little dots here that you see, these are actually just little bits from the rose. So this is eucalyptus, and this is a whole bunch of roses. Like these were little white roses. Okay. Red eucalyptus, another of those white carnations, and some other eucalyptus. So you do get the outline of the rose. Rose leaf and eucalyptus. You can see that there's not a lot of variance in what I've used here. So this is the point that I'm getting at, is look how interesting these papers are. I mean, I know you're probably feeling like, well, a lot of them look pretty similar, but you know, if all you have are like white papers, ledgers, you know, whatnot, introducing something like this into your paper, you know, is going to be pretty exciting. You're going to have a lot of these papers that you can just, you know, use, and all you've done here is all I've done is basically a falsely dyed group of 3 roses in a rainbow tone, a falsely dyed like sprigs of eucalyptus in a red tone, and then rose leaves, and a few random carnations, and I'm going to have this really fun and interesting group of papers. So I just want to show you how easy this is and how like accessible it is, because yeah, it's something that I have a lot of fun with, so I recommend it. Alright, so we have a chain that I wrapped around this one. There is a little bit more metal in this. I can feel it as I'm holding this stack. Alright, let's just set the stack down over here. And then, there we go. Okay, get my strings out of here. That's just another thrift store necklace. Okay, so this paper that I'm about to pull up, it does have a little tear in it from the chain, because sometimes you get a little bit of damage to the paper. However, this is actually a piece of heavy watercolor paper. What I do, you know, you think of how paper is pulped, just kind of press it a little if you can. This one might have a bit too much of a pronounced hole, but if you have a small hole, just doing a little gentle rubbing on the surface, you can almost kind of pulp the paper back together and heal it. I've actually had great success in doing that, and to be completely honest, a lot of the time if there is a little hole in the paper, you probably will want to just use it anyways, because it's really cool, and you can even make it bigger, and like you'll find that really interesting. I've made a lot of journals that have little holes in the paper, and I've put something on the next page that peeks through the hole. Like, you know, there's a way to work with everything. So you can see the distinct difference here. This watercolor paper versus the sketchbook paper has really given me excellent shades. There's also great floral assets on this though, right? Like there's a lot of color variation, a lot of different plants, like the same plants, but lots of, you know, oops, see, so I accidentally tore that. I'm going to keep it right there though. It's not a problem. I'm going to use it, even if I use it as two separate pieces, or I literally cut a tag out of that, it's going to be beautiful. So don't stress. This is meant to be fun and surprising. So look how pretty. Lots of red coming off that eucalyptus. And overall, those dyed roses just gave a really interesting hue to this paper. Got some blue. Okay, so those are the only two pieces of watercolor paper that I used. We're now back to the sketchbook paper, because I was on a use it up mission. And that one's nice. Again, lots of tones of different colors. And good shadows from the eucalyptus. Alright, so see, here's a couple of can lids, and I'll show you them in 1 second when I put this down and open it here. Okay, so can lid 1 and can lid 2. And then you'll see, hopefully you can see, I don't know if you can see the next page up here, but if you can, pardon me, you'll see can lids, but if not, I'll show it to you in just 1 sec. Just remove, oops, I'm putting these in the wrong pile. Just remove these flowers and leaves. Rainbow roses. Just the little rose seeds. But yeah, I really love that page. Okay. So there's the can lid imprint. I love the purpliness of all this. That's coming from a combination of roses in general. Roses do this purpley color, but also some of that red eucalyptus. But you'll see here, this is the main reason, these roses. Any shade of rose, I find, maybe with exception to white, doesn't give you will give you a lot of pinky purple colors. More purple hue is what is common. But even then, if you have white roses and you add some other plants, you can get either good yellowy green shades or purple again. Like roses just, they always lend some kind of color. and they always give good shadow marks because they're a thin petal and they really stick to the paper. So whatever you're adding to your paper, if you're adding, you can add dyes as well. You can add things like food colorant and commercial dye, and you can add tea, you can add coffee, you can add mordants or tannins, things like like basic acids like citric acid or vinegar. Basic tannins, like things like, you can add alum to help to seal the color as well. It's not, I don't know, it's not as necessary as with fabric, but it does add a bit of a effect. The sizing in the paper often will do the same kind of thing, though, to be a color sealant and to make it light fast. But you can add natural things that lend color, like the peels of avocados, pomegranate peels, black walnuts, horse chestnuts. Okay, so here's my big cog. This one is my favorite cog. I want to get more of these in different sizes that are flat this way. I got that one at the Aberfoyle flea market years ago, and I haven't been really back there since the whole world situation changed, but it's an outdoor market, so it's actually a safer thing to do. So I may venture back there one day. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I love that cog. You can really see it on the paper, which is nice. I think that was my favorite bundle so far. We have one more, and I don't need to cut it, it's already open. Okay. Yeah, lots of great color on that one. That was in between, or it had rusty things sitting directly on top of it. It's the iron oxide reaction with acids in plants and the natural tannins in plants. It's mainly tannin from the plant and the iron oxide that has this reaction that makes a darker color. Oh, that's nice. That carnation showed up beautifully on the on that one side. Okay. Papers are so moody. They're exactly what I need. I'm thinking they're going to go into some books that I'm working on for death and mourning, and they're very perfect for that. And also, there's some irony in the fact that they're made from funerary compost. So, just getting down to the details, people. Sort of accidentally, but rose leaves off here, bubbles and water. So I will hang these to dry. I have a rack that I dry them on. You can lay them flat if you really want to have, flat papers. I'm not going to bother because I typically fold them in half for journals. So here's a piece of rusty stuff, and you can see the mark that it left behind on both sides. We also got the rose leaf stem. And then I know I've mentioned this in other videos, but don't be distraught if you're having trouble getting some of the flowers and things off. After you dry it, you can actually just brush it off with your hand. The paper will be much stronger at that point, and you can very easily get the plants off. So you see here we got a little bit of a hole from this plant. That's going to look so cool when it's dry. So I'll show you when they're dry. It's kind of cool. It creates this little peephole, a little abyss on the paper. And then this was one of those big white fluted flowers. Datura. This was a datura. Lilies do the same thing. They give a big shadowy kind of shape. So that is the wet process. All this paper is going to go get hung up and dried, and then I will come back and I'll show you what it looks like dry. Okay, I'm back with dry paper the next day here. So, here is the top sketchbook paper. This is the one that had the big flat cog, and you can see that the paper itself is like a grayish tone, and it has lots of like maroon and plummy purpley kind of color from the eucalyptus. Yes, so the cog on the other side, lots of nice eucalyptus leaves here. More eucalyptus. That red dyed eucalyptus really gave an interesting tone to all this paper. These are the can lids. Lots of eucalyptus again. I also just really love the bubbles on the back of the paper. This is the watercolor paper. This is that one that got that tear in it, but I don't care actually. I'm going to use it for something. Another thing I like to do that worked out really well in a journal that I recently made was I had a paper that was like this, and I just put it through my sewing machine and I stitched over it here. Another thing you can do is you can, glue, and you can repair with a little piece of glued on paper. You can paint it gold, kind of like the Japanese pottery technique, which it's funny, I think I forget the name of it right now, to repair your mistakes by using like gold glaze. And I think the reason that I forget is I block it out of my mind a little bit because I'm also a potter, and that's always the thing that people tell you to do when your pottery doesn't work. It's like, oh, just, I saw this thing on the and then they tell you the story of how they saw a meme online about like how Japanese people and gold, and you're like, yeah, but that's not really going to help me try to perfect my pottery skills. But it's just a funny joke, it's like when you are in an industry of something, whenever people learn, there's some of that chain, whenever people learn something about what you're doing, they relate it to you, but like that's the same thing that everyone relates to you. It's funny. That's how I always joke that I'm always my friend's creepy doll head friend, because I have endless people that tag me on things that have like creepy doll heads in them because they know that I collect doll heads. So there's some cogs and some nice black from those rose petals. That's the can lid again. And more eucalyptus. So yeah, with a very, very basic, set of things. Some dyed and regular eucalyptus, some rose petals, some rusty bits. We've got some really cool paper here. The leaves from roses. What else did I use? I think that's it, right? This one's really dramatic. I love it. Beautiful. Oh, these are going to be perfect. Oh, and then the carnations. That's the carnation. And there's the leaves, the rose leaves. But yeah, this one is really fun. I like how the color collected on the fold. That's from the rust and the metally bit. That one's really pretty too. Almost looks like a tree. Yeah, really nice. There's the rusty bits and more carnation. I think that's a piece of paper. Yeah, I'll toss that. But these will be perfect for the project that I plan to use them for. And then there's the torn one that I talked to you about, how, sometimes you get a tear. Well, look how cool that is. It almost looks like an agate, or like a wood, like the whole of a tree or something. You can do something really cool with that. Yeah. And then the last page, lots and lots of eucalyptus leaves. Okay, so that concludes this boiled book. So this boiled book, it differed a little in that I had extremely basic components. And I'm really happy with the result. I really like how they're very like maroon, sort of, not maroon, like mauve gray. I think they're really fun, and they're grungy, and they'll be perfect. So thank you so much for hanging out with me, and we'll talk again soon. Bye for now.